KTVU and first in the Bay Area. This is the 10 o'clock news on Channel 2, the #1 primetime newscast in the country.
In the Persian Gulf region today, the Navy continued to search for 8 Marines whose helicopters disappeared yesterday on a training mission over the North Arabian Sea. It's a search for bodies. Marine Corps officials have been quoted as saying they do not expect to find survivors. The missing Marines were on board 2 helicopters that may have collided, and a Bay Area man was on one of those choppers. Today, relatives of 22-year-old Corporal Timothy Romei gathered to talk about their loss. Bob McKenzie reports.
Because his parents divorced and remarried, Timothy Romei grew up in 2 families. Both families drew together in Alameda today, talking about the young Marine corporal who had loved his job, loved helicopters, and had always wanted to be a Marine. The television camera wasn't an intruder, they said. They wanted to talk about Timothy, to tell the world what he had been like.
He was just a really fine person. He really was. He didn't judge people. Everybody loved him. He liked everybody. He never didn't like anybody. He cared about people. He really cared about everybody. And when he spoke to you, you felt like he cared about you. And he wanted to help the world. And he felt he was doing that in the Marine Corps.
We're literally halfway across the world. I was in Connecticut, he was in the Philippines, and home is in California. And it was just find out we had a lot more in common than differences. And that was a lot about his last letter to me, too, which I got an hour after I found out he died.
He wasn't ever really here except at Christmas and holidays, but he was such a major part of my life. I mean, I told him my problems, and he helped me out with things I was going through, and he's just woven into the fabric, and as you pull him out and the fabric unravels.
Timothy Romei graduated from Lincoln High School in San Francisco, where he took ROTC classes. Though his mother asked him not to, he joined the Marines. He wanted to fly helicopters. He was disappointed when he didn't get pilot training, but he was mechanically inclined and came to love his job as crew chief of the Huey chopper he maintained. He was proud that the aircraft carried his name and that it never left the ground until he said it was ready. Helicopters fly in close formation to present a smaller target to enemy radar, but the risk is the danger of collision. Since the accident happened at night, Timothy's family members wonder if the cause was the night goggles worn by pilots. The goggles are notorious for restricting pilots' peripheral vision.
Things happen, but for something to happen that didn't have to happen is just outrageous. I mean, there's always accidents in the military. I was in the military, I know that. Training is dangerous, but unnecessary risks like that shouldn't happen to anyone else. I'd hate to have another family go through this.
Family was one of the biggest, most important things to Tim. And I think he would be really happy the way we're all gathered here together and talking.
I miss him. I don't really believe it. But he was fortunate because he died doing something he loved to do. And I suppose that's some consolation to me.
Funeral services for Timothy Romei will be held Friday at an Alameda church and at the Presidio in San Francisco. In Alameda, Bob McKenzie for the 10 o'clock news.
The Pentagon today released the names of the other 7 men presumed dead in those helicopter crashes, and here's that list.
Watching KRON TV, Channel 4. The news continues from the News Center for Northern California with Pete Wilson, Suzanne Shaw, Steve Raleigh's weather, and Gary Radnich with sports. Now, News Center 4 at 6.
The Navy continued its search for 7 missing Marines in the North Arabian Sea today. 2 helicopters vanished over the area yesterday while on a training mission. 1 man has been found, though. News Center 4's Mark Mullen reports on the Bay Area's latest casualty.
There have been no surprise ambushes on U.S. troops, no poison gas attacks by Saddam Hussein. But American troops are dying in the Persian Gulf. Among the latest, Corporal Tim Romei of San Francisco, one of 8 Marines and 2 helicopters like these, which went down in a Mideast training mission off the USS Okinawa. Tim's stepfather was listening to details about the crash on television when a car pulled in front of the family home.
I saw the Marines pull up here today, and it's like something out of a movie. You know why they're there, and you don't want to hear it.
At 1 this morning, the family had not yet gone to sleep. They wanted to talk and remember Tim and his sister Katie's hands, a present Timmy had given her years before. Between tears, the mother of the Marine helicopter crew chief told us she always supported her son, even when she didn't agree with U.S. military decisions.
I'm opposed to what's happening right now there and how we're handling it, but he loved what he was doing. He loved those birds. He loved his name. He's a crew chief, so his name was on the helicopter.
Corporal Tim Romei's stepsister wonders what the troops are dying for.
The only thing that's over there is our oil interests, and these people are being killed because we want oil. I mean, that's dumb. That's a stupid reason for someone to be dying.
A memorial service and a military funeral at the Presidio are being planned for Corporal Tim Romei, U.S. Marine. Mark Mullen, News Center 4.
Dave McElhatton, Kate Kelly, Wayne Walker, and Brian Sussman. This is KPIX Eyewitness News Nightcast.
The crisis in the Persian Gulf is hitting home again. The Marines confirming one of the servicemen lost in a helicopter crash came from San Francisco. The Marines say Corporal Timothy Romei and 7 others are missing and presumed killed after their helicopter went down in a training mission this past weekend. Romei, a 4-year Marine veteran and crew chief of his Huey helicopter.
From the time he was a little boy, he was interested in flying. He wanted to fly, he wanted to be in the service.
Timothy Romei was a graduate of Lincoln High and just 22 years old. A service with full military honors is being planned.
You're watching Channel 7 News, #1 in Northern California. Now, Channel 7 News at 6.
A helicopter crash in the North Arabian Sea has become a tragedy for a Bay Area family. Yesterday, 2 American helicopters disappeared while on a nighttime mission. The crew of both are missing and feared dead. Today, a Marine spokesman said that one of the missing, Corporal Tim Romei, has relatives in the Bay Area. His hometown has not yet been confirmed. Romei's unit is based at Camp Pendleton in Southern California.
And now, the Coffee Prime Time News at 10.
First, a Bay Area man dies in the Middle East. His family talks about his sacrifice.
San Francisco man is among the latest casualties of the Persian Gulf crisis. He is Marine Corporal Timothy Romei. He was aboard one of the 2 U.S. helicopters that went down over the Arabian Sea. Members of his family gathered in Alameda today and talked about the kind of man he was.
Everybody loved him. He liked everybody. He never didn't like anybody. He cared about people. He really cared about everybody. And when he spoke to you, you felt like he cared about you. And he wanted to help the world. And he felt he was doing that in the Marine Corps.
Corporal Romei was among 8 U.S. soldiers believed lost in that helicopter accident.
Live from KTVU and first in the Bay Area, this is the 10 o'clock news on Channel 2. The #1.
Here in the Bay Area, a memorial service for an Alameda Marine who won't be coming home from the Middle East. In 2 straight days now, the Bay Area has seen 2 funerals for American servicemen who died in Operation Desert Shield. Yesterday, it was Air Force Captain James Poulet of San Carlos who was laid to rest. He died in a jet crash. Today, a young Marine, Corporal Timothy Romei of Alameda. Funeral services in that city were followed by military service at San Francisco National Cemetery in the Presidio. But this time, there were no remains, no flag-draped coffin for the mourners to bid farewell. Wallace Alviar has a report.
Family and friends gathered this morning at Alameda's Christ Episcopal Church. They gathered to remember, to comfort each other in the loss of a son, a brother, a friend.
I have lost one of the most important people I've ever known. A good man, a beautiful friend, and my brother, Timothy William Romei. I salute you. I love you.
A best friend remembered a last conversation.
And he said, you know, friends come and go, but there's a few people that you hold dear in your lives until the day you're gone. It's pretty much the last thing he said to me.
22-year-old Timothy Romei died Monday when his helicopter and another went down during night operations over the Arabian Sea. 7 other crew members were also lost. All 8 are still listed as missing. Their bodies not recovered.
Not having a body, I don't know if that adds to it at all. It makes different ways of thinking that he could still be alive. Makes it easier to think that, but you still know inside that he's gone.
A last letter from son to mother was read at today's service, giving insight into the dilemmas of a young soldier and the possibility of war.
Is there any serious protesting going on? I kind of got mixed feelings on that one. If they're trying to get us home, that's great. But I hope that they're not saying that we're a bunch of warmongering, imperialistic camel killers and all that. I agree with bringing us home, but when I get home, I don't want a bunch of people putting me down. The way I see it, without sounding too patriotic, is that you may not agree with what the whole thing's about, but don't put down the guys over here. We're just doing our job the best we can.
A small consolation for family and friends is that Corporal Timothy William Romei died doing what he believed in and what he loved most, flying.
Now I feel you standing, excited. You spread your arms and take flight on your own. No machine to weight you down. You go higher than ever before.
At the Presidio in San Francisco, Wallace Alvear for the 10 o'clock news.
This is KPIX Eyewitness News at noon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lauren Nancaro, and topping our news, the crisis in the Persian Gulf will forever be etched in the memories of an Alameda family. The family of Marine Corporal Timothy Romei today paid its lasting respects to a son and a brother who died in Operation Desert Shield. A memorial service was held for Corporal Romei this morning. He was one of 8 Marines who are missing, presumed dead, after a pair of Huey helicopters went down in the North Arabian Sea on Monday. The Marines are holding a service for Corporal Romei at the Presidio as well right now. 7 color guards will give a 21-gun salute, and a bugler will play taps at the Presidio ceremony.
You're watching Channel 7 News, #1 in Northern California, with Cheryl Jennings and Don Sanchez, naturalists Pete Giddings and Joel Bartlett, Dan Lovett with sports, and Dr. Deanie Dell has house calls. Now, Channel 7 News at 5.
The people who knew and loved Timothy Romei buried in the Bay Area Marine today with full military honors. Romei was killed in the Persian Gulf this week. Today, he was eulogized as a proud Marine who considered himself a peacemaker. Channel 7's Ed Leslie has the story.
22-year-old Marine Corporal Timothy Romei, who grew up in Alameda and San Francisco, was remembered in today's services as a peacemaker concerned with coming home with head high. Father Dan Hirth of Christ Episcopal Church read from the young Marine's last letter home to his mother.
If they're trying to get us home, that's great. But I hope that they're not saying that we're a bunch of warmongering, imperialistic camel killers and all that. I agree with bringing us home, but when I get home, I don't want a bunch of people putting me down. The way I see it, without sounding too patriotic, is that you may not agree with what the whole thing's about, but don't put down the guys over here. We're just doing our job the best we can. I hope you'll stand up for me, even though you may not agree. And we do stand up for you, Tim. Stand up. We stand up now. And we stand now as a sign of our love for you. Hold hands.
Full military honors followed at the Presidio of San Francisco. Corporal Romei became the 32nd American to die in the Kuwait-Saudi Arabia situation when his helicopter went down in the Persian Gulf this week, raising questions about safety procedures and equipment, such as the controversial night vision goggles some helicopter personnel use. No one spoke of that here today, however. It was more a time for dignified goodbyes. At the Presidio of San Francisco, Ed Leslie, Channel 7 News.